Here's Jeff Paterson, our Canucks reporter, one half of the Rink Wide duo with Andrew Watt. They took in the game last night against the Tampa Bay Lightning, but all sorts of happenings on another newsy day for the Canucks. Hi, Jeff. How goes?
Yeah, you're right. Lots going on around this hockey club. There was a lot going on in the rink last night, even before Steven Stamkos made his history. So, just end of the night, though, another game goes by where the Vancouver Canucks are clearly second best out on the ice. And, hey, the star power was out in full force, and it was kind of cool to see Stamkos set, or at least reach, a pretty remarkable milestone in hockey annals.
And set it off the top of the show. And Stamkos set it off the top of the show. Proud of the people in the building last night who recognized they saw hockey history and gave Stamkos his due. I thought it was a really nice moment that he saluted the crowd after goal number 500. That should happen in a hockey market, so well done to those at Rogers Arena.
For sure.
Jeff, our old mate Jason Bruff says he's hearing could be Monday for a Rick Tocchet hiring or announcement from the Vancouver Canucks, which would mean a few more games here, a couple more games for Bruce Boudreau against Colorado and Edmonton on the weekend. Answer us the Bodog poll. Have you lost respect for the Canucks the way they've handled Bruce? And what do you make of reports we could see Tocchet as soon as Monday?
The way they've handled Bruce, I'm a little caught up in the wording because I'm not sure I'm the guy to ask this question, quite frankly, over the course of the last few days. So it hasn't been great. I don't like to see anybody treated the way that they've treated Bruce there. And just the guy that came to town last year so full of positivity, so excited to be back in hockey and had the Midas touch. And it's not the same human being. It's just, forget the coach. It's just not the same human being. And he's had the fun beaten out of him, which pretty incredible when you think of Bruce's effervescence and just his lust for life and positivity and everything else. And just to see him on a daily basis now beaten down, it's unfortunate. And so when they pull the plug, if it's this weekend, if it goes into next week, if it gets to the All-Star break, whatever, I have to imagine that there's going to be an element of relief, even though there are only 32 head coaching jobs in the National Hockey League, and this could be the end of the line for him as far as one of these opportunities go. I don't want to say it's going to be the end of the line for him in hockey. He can go back into television. He might be an assistant coach. I just don't know at his age, at this stage of his career, if he would be a candidate to be a head coach again. So it's tough, but whether it's Monday, whether it's Sunday, honestly, I think it's a day-to-day proposition, and he is living moment by moment as the head coach of the Canucks. But the one thing that hasn't really been talked about here in a lot, guys, is does Rick Tocchet have any say in the timing of his arrival? Does he want to be associated with this group for the final 40 games as opposed to, is there something, what if he comes in and it just continues to go sideways and whatever goodwill, whatever, hope and faith that they put in him, and he has no ability to affect change? What if he says, I'll take the final 20 games as opposed to the final 40?
Yeah.
I wonder. And then you would have time to get to know the personnel. By then you are so far out of it that there's no pressure to perform, really. I don't know. I just wonder, if he is their guy, then he's got a little say in some of this as well. And so I don't know. I'm not just saying that, it's not imminent because all the reports are, but I do wonder if he'd be a little safer coming in a little further down the road with an eye to next season instead of trying to put his stamp and salvage. There's no salvaging ultimately what's left of this season.
There's no salvaging, quite right, Jeff. It would be 36 games for Tocchet if he were to take over on Monday. Of course, the argument is he's able to get on in here, install his system, get to know the players, get to know who's going to fit, who's not going to fit, and gets a chance to give them marching orders through the summer.
Yeah, but do you need 36 games for
quite
that?
Right. Do you need 36 games for that? Probably not. There is, of course, no salvaging the situation, but you're probably going to get a better barometer on guys and how hard they can play. And
also, do you?
I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
No, I know, but adding logic here. like, does it matter to come in and teach Luke Shen and Bo Horvat and whoever's leaving this organization by March 3rd to teach them systems? I'll take over post deadline when I know who's going to be here probably for next season. I'll teach those guys my system, not the guys that are leaving in a couple of weeks' time anyway.
All fair. Jeff?
Yeah, no, it's just something that crossed my mind that, we look at it from the organization standpoint, but if Tocchet knows that he's got them over a barrel, that he is the guy that they want, then he might be able to make some demands. And why wouldn't you say, you know what, I got a pretty cushy gig here on the panel, and man, did he look awkward when they put the questions to him. I mean, there's no win in that situation for him. But at the same time, as Blake said, tell them, hey, you guys go clean up your house ahead of the trade deadline. I'll come in after that, and we can do the dance for whatever's left of the season, and I'll work with the guys that are likely to be around here next year and get to know them and start to instill some systems. Because really, let's be honest, what's left of January, what's left of February, and really what's left of the season. But between now and the trade deadline, the results on the ice don't matter. I mean, as every game goes by and the losses mount, they really are just kind of spinning their wheels in the muck here. And another loss in front of the home fans, too, guys. They have 8 wins in 20 games at home, only 5 of those regulation. There's more than half the home games remaining. And I guess from the franchise's standpoint, you still have to sell tickets. You still have to put a product on the ice. So, if they are going to make a change, I can understand why they would want to speed up the process a little bit, just to bring in a fresh coat of paint and splash that out there, and it can serve as a distraction. And maybe you do change something that allows people to start to buy in and give them hope. But it's just crazy how little this team has performed, to the point that with San Jose's win over Dallas last night at home, the Canucks, the Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks all tied for dead last in points gained in front of their home fans and the paying customers. Well, it's incredible.
I was going to bring up the standings because that San Jose win pulls them within 2 of the Canucks. So, that seems like a doable rung to climb in the draft lottery odds. They are tied in regulation wins with the Sharks and the Coyotes, who are 29th in the league. And that's because, remember that stretch of wins that they did pick up last month? All those OT and extra time wins? What if only half of those go their way? When they won 6 games in a row in extra time? What if only half those go their way? They're 3 points even less than where they are right now. And we are talking about them in a top 4, maybe even a top 3 draft lottery position. That's how bad this team is. Let's make no mistake about where this team is. They belong with the Anaheims and the Arizonas. They do.
Well, and to take your point a step further, they're 3-0 against the San Jose Sharks. And 2 of those were those overtime wins. If you take the head-to-head matchups out of the equation, the Sharks are ahead of the Canucks by a couple of points. So, the Canucks have... they've beaten the Ducks once. They've only played them once, but they've beaten the Sharks all 3 times that they've played them. And
king of the losers.
Pretty much. Yeah, I'm not sure that that's a crown that you want to wear, but it does apply. And, so it's just kind of funny. Again, not that... the players are trying to win every game. I get all of that, but... yes, for whatever reason, they have managed to beat the Sharks the 3 times that they played them, and ultimately that could come back to bite them in the end when it comes to the draft lottery.
The Gino Odjick ceremony pregame. First of all, I thought Ronnie Delorme coming out in traditional garb and dropping the puck, fantastic touch. I was a little surprised to see Trevor Linden back in the building, but hey, he has made I think that's the second exception, if I'm not mistaken, since the falling out with the Canucks. But what did you, and of course, some Gino chants in the stands early and late when they were trying to make the comeback. Your thoughts and observations on the commemoration for Gino Odjick?
Well, it was funny because I think they were trying to keep Trevor's appearance a little bit of a secret. And so where normally they would just have all the guys, the celebrated party sort of standing off to the side, and then they would walk one by one out the red carpet, or blue carpet as it was. All of the alumni were back in the Canucks tunnel. So there was this long delay in the building as Al Murdoch introduced Jyrki Lumme, and then Jyrki had to kind of awkwardly shuffle in front of all the players to get to the gate and get out. And so, they announced Trevor, but it was dark, and and Trevor had to do the same sort of walk, and it was this awkward kind of delay. But ultimately, there was a big roar for Trevor Linden, there was a big roar for Kirk McLean, and yeah, I mean, it was a nice, touching tribute, certainly. I didn't think the Gino chants were as loud or as pronounced as I expected them to be. Quite frankly, when the Canucks came out for warm-up, wearing all of them in Gino, 29 Odjick jerseys, I thought we would hear some Gino chants in the warm-up, and there was no hint of that. And yes, I mean, there were Gino chants right after the ceremony, certainly. But I don't know. It didn't reach the level that
the rafters. Yeah.
No, it didn't rattle the rafters. You're right. And then, of course, then Stamkos scores 4 minutes in, and then the Bolts pile on. And so, I thought there might be some Bruce There It Is chants. I think we talked about that, but there was no chanting for the coach last night when it's 4-0 in the first period. And he's got to get the hook out. And so, I mean, it was just the ceremony itself was fitting and touching, and I know that the club announced as well that they're going to have a First Nations night later in the season, and Gino will feature prominently in that, his memory and his legacy. These are tough to pull together, and so for them to get all of those alumni, Jeff Courtnall, haven't seen him around the rink in a little while, but he was there as well. Mm-hmm. I think they did the best they could on relatively short notice from Gino's passing on Sunday to game night on Wednesday, but I don't know. I thought we would hear Gino chants all night long, and they would sort of resonate and fill the building. And quite frankly, I didn't think that they did that.
Is that a sign of apathy? Like, are the fans now at these games just kind of there? Like they've got the tickets, so they're going, but they're not revved up.
Blake, I think it's less about the hockey, and I think it's more about a social outing. And frankly, I think that applies to almost the last decade of Canucks hockey. It's not really about whether they win or lose. It's about getting out for an expensive night.
Yeah, and I think, too, let's be honest. It's been 30 years since Gino was a player. Like, if you've got 10 and 12 and 15-year-olds that are in the building, they've probably seen YouTube clips. They know of Gino, but I don't know that there is that connection compared to his playing days when there was a visceral reaction to what he did, and it kind of sparked that response from the fan base as they all got riled up when he was dropping the gloves and doing his thing. So time does march on, and there are new generations of fans, and so who knows? Also, it was Tampa, and you think the star power alone on the other side and the potential to see a piece of NHL history with Stamkos. Again, a lot of empty seats in the lower bowl, like in the good seats, the expensive seats. Looking across, right in behind the penalty box, like there were chunks of empty seats for the Tampa Lightning. And I guess I'm not surprised when we saw on the recent road trip the digital ads constantly pushing tickets for that game. The television spots were running. I mean, we saw this earlier when Montreal came through here. Like they were pushing tickets for the Montreal Canadiens. They are having trouble filling that building. There are tickets available for just about everybody. Forget selling tickets for your own product. You'd think that some of these high-end teams that don't come through here very often would sell themselves, but that doesn't seem to be the case right now for this organization.
And so maybe they're using the skate and the old colors to help sell. What did you make of the jerseys? And 10 more home games, Jeff, they've announced, including the next 4.
Yeah.
To be played in that color scheme and in those jerseys. It's February 15th against the Rangers is the next time they're not wearing the skate at home. And I think I know why.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
I'm fine. I mean, I like the look of it. I am not a guy that worries too much about jerseys, so I don't get too hung up in what the Canucks are ever wearing. If they wore pink pajamas and won every game, I would be totally down with that, and that might be something they want to try here at some point because nothing else seems to be working. But the defense looked as ghastly in black as, in fact, maybe it was a little more slimming. Maybe there was more room for the opponent to skate past the defense last night. But same old Canucks, the defensive breakdowns. So, cover them in whatever cloth you want. You cannot hide the flaws of this roster. But to the eye, it's an appealing look. It's a distraction ploy. Although I did see that as they ran it out last night, they put out something on social that last night was always the intended rollout of the skate, and then it just happened to time nicely with Gino's passing and the legacy of Gino and his wearing of that uniform. So it wasn't rushed, it wasn't stepped up. But I will admit, I bought the fact that they had the decals on the blue helmets at practice the other day. they got me. I did not think that we were going to see the skate as early as last night. So
when they first started trolling these out, Demko had the Kirk McLean homage set up, of course. When do you think we next see Thatcher Demko? Because the goaltending is very subpar. Let's make no mistake about it. It's a big problem, and it is a big part of the 5-goal streak that they've got going here, particularly to start the new year. The goals, they are hemorrhaging. But do they bother putting in a rehabilitating Thatcher Demko behind this team? Or do they just try to keep him safe and warm as long as possible to make him avoid any sort of lack of confidence?
Bring this conversation full circle. I wonder if Tocchet's asked that question.
Yeah.
Imagine that, taking over this job and your first decision is Spencer Martin or Colin Delia. But that's the reality. That's what Bruce faces right now, and that's what Rick Tocchet's going to be dealing with. Jim Rutherford said at the press conference, among the many, many things that he said, that there was no way they were rushing him back. And that is the right call. This guy is too valuable an asset in a lost season. There's nothing to be gained until he is 100% healthy. And I do think that a lot of his performance issues early in the season track back to whatever the procedure he had done last offseason that shut him down at the tail end of last year. And if you're a goalie in the NHL, you have to be so free of mind that your body is up to the challenge and can make every movement required in a split second. And I just don't think that Thatcher ever looked comfortable. And some of that was apparent in the goals that he was giving up. And so I know they said 6 weeks. It's just a timeline. I'm not going to hold them and say, something's happened here. Timelines are timelines. But with the week off coming up, I've never felt that it made any sense to see Thatcher Demko in uniform again before, until after the All-Star break. So I think it's still tracking in that regard. And then it's a question of, can he get some practices in, ramp things up? Because they're out on the road, and again, it's a compressed schedule right out of the All-Star break. They start in New Jersey, and it's another Eastern road trip there. So maybe he doesn't even go on that road trip or doesn't play on that road trip, and maybe it's not till closer to the middle of February. If he's completely healthy, I do think there's value in getting him back up and running and getting some games in and knocking off rust and just having something to build on for next season so that he's free in his mind, that he knows that the body has recovered here. But, yeah, in the short term, just to speak of the goaltending woes, and look, I don't want to pin it on Spencer Martin last night. I mean, the Stamkos goal, a tap in. Kucherov, the cross-seam pass seems to have returned in the Canucks zone, and I don't know if anybody was stopping that one. And then the fourth one with Stamkos walking out of the corner and gets away from Burrows. The third goal was the rebound. They had, of the four that he let in, the rebound one, I would like to have seen him control that rebound a little bit more. But Spencer Martin won his first game out of the Christmas break against San Jose. He has not won since. He's lost 5 straight starts and 6 straight decisions. And beyond that, since that win against San Jose on December 27th, he's running with a 5.23 goals against average. It's not NHL goaltending. It was a nice story. And when he was in tandem with Demko at the start of the season and there wasn't the pressure on him, he was giving up goals, but he was finding ways to win, and they were scoring lots of goals for him. But it's stark when you look at the splits from when Demko was healthy to when Demko got injured, and all of a sudden Spencer Martin became the de facto number one, and his performance just hasn't lived up to that. And I think it's pretty clear, not that Tampa exploited it last night, but we've seen a lot of teams going for the glove hand. I think there's a book out there that's an area that you can beat him, and a lot of teams have. But a 5.23 goals against average and an .843 save percentage in his last 6 appearances. So that's tough.
The highlights last night, Andrei Kuzmenko getting a goal in front of mom and dad certainly looked proud. And, Hughes was fantastic in the third period as the comeback was on.
And Quinn Hughes has been really good, guys. Again, there's so many fires around this organization, and through it all, I just think he's up. He's found another level to his game, and it was always curious that he went the first 29 without a goal. That just didn't make sense for a guy that played that much. But all of a sudden, he's got 4 goals now in his last 11 hockey games and double digits for the season. I don't think he's out of the equation. I like the fact that he's attacking the net. We know that he doesn't have a bomb. He's not Al McInnes back there. So carve your way to the front of the net. And he did it for his first goal when he went round and around the zone against San Jose. And then last night, was able to weave his way through and in tight. Yeah, he's got so much skill that it's not a surprise. And I think a couple of point shots now, he was due, and they've gone through and found the back of the net as well. So it is kind of curious that all of a sudden the scoring touch is there for Quinn Hughes, who, through all the struggles of his hockey club, is back to being a point-a-game guy. He's still on pace to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a 75-point player. The Canucks have outscored their opponents by 11 at even strength when he is on the ice. So the people that poke holes in his defensive game, the Canucks have been outscored by 14 with OEL on the ice this year. So there's a 25-point swing there between Quinn Hughes and Oliver Ekman-Larsson in terms of goal differential. I think he's been really good on a lot of levels. And when you think about what's left for this team and for the fans to watch the rest of the way, I would say Elias Pettersson's quest for 100 points and Quinn Hughes just pushing this thing as far as he can. He set a franchise record last year. I think if he stays healthy, he's likely to do it again. And, there'll probably be years ahead where he does it again and again. But in the here and now, he's fun to watch. I think he's at or near the top of his game right now. Like he's dealing it offensively and he's holding his own defensively. What does he look like? What does his season look like after the trade deadline? If Luke Shen is dealt away, do they go back to Ethan Bear? Is there another defenseman that comes in? So there are going to be some factors here, certainly. But through it all, I think Quinn Hughes has been really good, and I thought he was good again for the Canucks last night. In fact, I thought he had scored on the Kuzmenko goal. Like I thought that one had beaten the goaltender cleanly, but Kuzmenko clearly got a piece of it, whatever the case. The curious statistic of the night, and I tweeted it out, 200 games between power play goals for Quinn Hughes, which is astounding when you think of...
Yeah, it really is.
77 power play points in those 200 games. So,
oh, wow.
So he's right. He had not put a puck in the net since January 2nd, 2020, pre-pandemic. In a crazy game, remember 8-5 at home against the Chicago Blackhawks, and he scored a power play goal that night. Had not scored on the power play since. So
but sometimes you need to be remembered of how he doesn't have a booming shot. We know that. So what does a defenseman goal look like? I like to see him try that scything move into the middle a little bit more often. Like that could be a path to 5 power play goals per year for him.
Yeah, totally. And Bruce Boudreau said as much after the game. He said, instead of him sliding to the outside, which seems to be his instinct, like when he takes the puck from the blue line and starts to move sort of downhill, he always seems to cut to his left. And Bruce was saying, we've encouraged him to take the puck to the inside a little bit more. And so I'm with you. It's just, there's so much skill. And I think from 30 feet, he's got to find wrist shot. From 60 feet, the slap shot isn't one that's necessarily going to scare a lot of goaltenders. So, he's a confident guy. He wants to be the best. I think he wants to improve and round out his game. And so I think this 11-game stretch where he scored 4 times probably reinforces some of the things that he has to do to put a few more pucks in the net along the way.
Marvelous stuff, Jeff. Thank you for this. Have a great weekend. We'll catch up with you on Monday.
Let's see what the weekend holds in store for this.
Could be a
club.
busy day, Jeff. Could be a very busy day.
I'm on standby. You've got my number.
Yes, good.